Please join me in welcoming Judy Recher with her speech titled Memories. Memories, Judy Recher.
I remember it well. Do you? Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, we all have a plethora of memories which can give us the strongest lessons of our lives. They can raise us up or they can hold us back. But the most challenging memories are those that differ from the memories of other people who were there at the same time. For example, I remember during high school, my sister and I doing the dinner dishes every night. The family songbook propped on the sink in front of us as we worked our way, singing from our hearts all these ballads and hymns. For reasons that we both now understand, my sister's memory was that she did dishes by herself, alone, with no music, like Cinderella, while I went and studied. I was raised in a warm and loving Southern American life. We showed respect for our parents. Discipline was subtle, but effective. All Mom had to do was just, and whatever we were doing, we wouldn't do anymore. As far as I know, there was no sibling rivalry in my family. My brothers were taught to be gentlemen. My sister and I were little ladies. No swearing, fighting, or any of those things that could degrade our ultimate femininity. We all had a strong bond of loyalty between us, and we keenly believed in protecting those who were not as strong as we were. I, in particular, as the oldest daughter, hated with a passion bullies. In second grade, I lost a tooth because I went after a fourth grader who was picking on the little ones. So imagine my feelings, the horror when I came into our living room one summer day and saw my two teenage brothers fighting. They weren't fighting. Jack was bullying Jim. He was pushing him and shoving him and swearing at him and being really nasty. And I couldn't stand it. Well, how could I do that? I pushed my way in the middle of them and I said, Jack, you leave Jim alone. With a negligent sweep of his arm, he pushed me aside and he said, stay out of this, sis. Huh, not me. I'm not staying out of it. Jack, I said leave Jim alone. Stop it right now. Again. Judy, this has nothing to do with you. That was like raising a red flag to a bull. I was so angry. I had no control. I lost it all. And I rushed between them again. And I said to him, as I pushed him with his chest, I said, leave Jim alone, you son of a... Oh, what have I just called our mother? He looked down at me with ice in his voice and he said, what did you call me? And I said, I called you a son of a... The ice dripped on my face as his eyes bored into me. Don't you ever call me that again. I was so mad. I was so angry. I had no control. I said, you son of a... And then I looked, and my brother Jim was leaning against the wall, grin on his face. And he was watching his big sister pick on his big brother. And I realized I had succeeded in what I wanted to do. They were no longer fighting. Jack was no longer bullying Jim. So I turned around to go walk down the hall. And I heard a noise. And I looked over my shoulder. And there was Jack coming after me. Each step that long. And he caught me and he picked me up by the shoulders. And he brought me up to his eye level. And he shook me and he said, "Don't you ever call me that again as long as you live, or I'll. And he dropped me. And I looked up at him and I said, "You son of a..." And I knew right then that I had destroyed the love of this brother for me. I knew what I had done. And it wasn't long until he left, and I remembered the hate on his face, which ate a hole through my heart and went deep into my soul. And when he left, the first of us to go, he was gone a long time. And when he came back, we sat around having a reunion, all of us, talking and laughing and reminiscing. And I looked at him and I thought, oh, he's so beautiful. He's so wonderful. And as far as I know, he was only a bully once. And I realized just how much I had lost. And I started to cry. Soon my crying got louder and became sobbing. And Mom looked at me and she said, "Judy, what's wrong?" And I said, "Jack doesn't love me anymore." She said, "What?" I said, "Jack hates me." She said, "Jack, take her into the other room and see if you can find out what's wrong." So putting his arm around my shoulders, we went into the other room, sat down on the couch. He held me close and he said, "Sugar, why do you say I don't love you? Why would you even think I don't love you?" And I said, because I called you a son of a..." He sat back and he looked at me and he said, "When did you do that?" After all that pain, all that agony, he didn't even remember. That was when I learned that the pain of self-imposed guilt is infinitely worse than the reality of misunderstanding. And any time that I feel that I possibly have hurt someone that I love, the first thing I do is to ensure that the memories are the same. Mr. Toastmaster.